Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another tutorial video for the Formations tutorial series in Unity. So this one is going to be how to generate a sphere object, and we're going to use other spheres as game objects to do this. To go ahead and keep up with the project of where we are, you can go into the description of this video and you can download the project file. And when you get the zip folder, you can unzip it. It'll have this full project already completed. Or you can go to the triangle tutorial, which is the one before this one. Download the zip file from there, and you'll have all of the code up until we start this video. So, alright, let's go ahead and get into it. We'll just open up the container component, the formation controller right here. It'll open up inside of Visual Studio for me. So what are we going to need to make a sphere? Well, theoretically, a sphere is essentially a bunch of circles, or you can do some half circles and then rotate it around an axis, spawning more half circles to make a full sphere, and that's what we're going to do here. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come into here and we're going to start off by making a function, and it'll be private void half circle. I could spell today. Alright, half circle. We want it to take in an int. So what I'm gonna call this number of points. What does this mean? It means whenever you draw the half circle, how many points do you want to be on that circle? And you can name it however so you fit. And then the half circle, we want a radius of it. We want the radius of that circle. Okay, go in here and start on our function. So what we need to do is, because it's a half circle, we're going to be going half of a circle, and a full circle, we know, if you used to math and geometry, a full circle will be 2 times pi. The circumference of a circle is 2 times pi. So what we're going to do is half a circle. So half of 2 times pi is just pi. So we're going to go and store this variable here called pieces. How many pieces of the pi? So initially, how many pieces of the circle is going to be number points minus 1. This will be for indexing. Let's go ahead and create a list of game objects, and we'll call them spheres. And it'll be set to a new list of just empty game objects, because this function is actually going to return this list of game objects, because it's going to be used later on to create the sphere from this first list of a half circle. So what we'll do now is, let's go and create a for loop. For at I is equal to 0, I is less than number of points, and then I plus plus. Then we're going to go into here and get our loop started. Okay, so what are we going to do in here? Well, whenever we come into here, we want to first instantiate a game object of our prefab, like so. And this is going to be a capital. And instantiate. Oh, here we go. E8. Alright, okay. So first we need to calculate the angle between each of the indexes that we're going to go ahead and draw from the center. So what we're going to do is, let's go ahead and create a float. We'll call it theta, which is just the angle. You can call it whatever you want. And then we'll set it to mathf.pi. Okay, that's what we want. We want to multiply that pi times I, the current index where we're at, divided by the amount of pieces we want. So we're trying to calculate the angle from the center of this half sphere, you could say, which is why we're doing math f pi instead of 2 times pi. So it's half a circle times each index, how many we want, divided by the current index divided by how many pieces. This is what's going to give you the angle from the middle to the current sphere you are inside of the loop, inside of the list. So what we need to do now is we need to go float x is set to mathf.cosine. We need the cosine of theta, and we're going to multiply it times the radius. This will give it the x position. And then we need the y position now, which the y position is going to be mathf.sine. And theta times the radius. Okay, so there's your theta, your float, and that. Now, all we have to do now is we'll come into here and do instance dot transform dot position is set to a new vector 3, and you put x, y, and we're not doing anything on the z-axis, so we just do that. And then to make things prettier up here, what we're going to do is we're going to say a game object. This is just to make the hierarchy a little bit cleaner. We'll do a container set to a new game object, and we'll call it a sphere container, like that. And we want to give it a position, so we'll just set it to vector 3.0, and world space is going to be empty. It's not going to do anything. Okay, now this instance that we created is now going to be, we're going to set its parent as the container we just created. Okay, now the spheres list we had at the top, we need to add the instance to it. So here we are with this list that's being generated. Once everything is added to the list, we're going to return spheres. Now, if we come over here and we call half circle inside of here, we will draw a half circle. Half circle, and I want it to be, we'll say we want it to draw 10 points, and we want a radius of 2. Control S to save it. Go back into Unity. Let it compile. Run it. And you got a half circle. 9, 10. Oh yeah, and there's your, awesome. Exactly what we needed. Looking pretty good. That is a half circle if I ever saw one. So what we're gonna do is come back into here. Do that. That's a half circle. Okay, so that's what we need there. Now when we want to go ahead and draw inside of the, now if we want to go and make a sphere, we're going to take this and we're going to use it somewhere else. So instead of actually coming in here and making it, we're not going to draw the half circle here. We're actually going to come down here. We're going to make another function. And this function is going to be the sphere formation. And this is going to take in a number of points as well. It's going to have a radius. And this is going to take also one more third parameter. It is the number of meridians. I'll explain to you one moment what that is. So that's what we need here. Number of points. Still can't spell this correctly. What are you doing? Number of points, radius, int number of meridians. So, what are meridians? Meridians is how many times you kind of want to make the half circle. Like how many revolutions around this circle do you actually want to put? When we drew the half circle, that was 1 meridian. And so what we'll do is we'll come into here. We're going to take the list. We're going to make a list game objects. Okay, we'll call them spheres. This is going to be equal. We're going to call the half circle function we have. The number of points is going to be the number of points we pass in. Number of points. Number of points. And then it takes in the radius. Like that. Okay, so we're going to generate our half circle. It will draw it on the screen. It will draw it. So what is going to happen is we're going to draw the half circle in there. And so we don't need to draw that half circle again. We just need to draw more half circles. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down here and we're going to start our loop. So we're going to do for and I equal to 0. I is less than the number of meridians. I plus plus. So we'll come into here. Now that we know how many half circles we want to draw, what we're going to do is we need to find out the angle that we're going to be drawing this at, because this is on a different axis. So we're going to do float. We'll just do phi. You can call it however you want. Phi. We're going to do 2 times the pi, because we are going to be going all the way around to make a full circle. So 2 times mathf dot pi. Okay. We're going to do times. Open brackets. We're going to do I divided by number of meridians. And this. Like that. Pi, so it's a local variable I, constant float. So we'll do this. Okay. And now that we have that angle, we got to do another loop. I equals 0. I is less than the number of points. Now we're saying, okay, so we're on our first meridian. We're on our first meridian now. Oh, we're going to set this to 1 because we already drew the first circle. We already drew the first half circle. We already drew the first meridian up here when inside of this function. So if you didn't draw it in here and you just kind of created them and put them into a list but didn't draw them, then you can come over here and put it back to 0. But for this tutorial, we're just going to put that one to 1. We're going to come into here. This is going to be J. Can't have 2. This will be J. This is going to be set to 1 as well. And it'll be looped through the number of points. And then we'll do J++. And we need to make sure this is not going to break. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to loop to how many points. Like, how many spheres do we want in this half circle? That's what this is. So we're going to come into here. We're going to do game object instance set to instantiate, just like we did earlier, the prefab. We just instantiate the prefab. Now we're going to come into here. We need to set the x-axis. We're going to do a float x. It's going to be set to, the way we draw these spheres now is they're going to be based off of the index of the ones we already have inside that list up there. So you'll go into the spheres list we have, and at index j, you're going to do transform dot position dot x. You're just going to set this new x variable to this, because these half circles will be drawn off of other spheres that are already created. That's going to be the starting point for them. So we'll do float y set to spheres j dot transform dot position dot y. Now the y we're going to multiply times mathf dot cosine. And the cosine will be the angle. Okay, so we're going to get the of that. And we're going to subtract it from spheres j dot transform dot position dot z times mathf, it fixed it for me, dot sine of phi. So why are we doing this? Okay, so because we've already taken care of everything and everything's going to be popped off of the x, we're not going to adjust the x position. We're not going to mess with it at all. Because now we're going to be drawing the sphere, which the sphere is in 3D space. A half circle can be drawn in 3D space or just 2D space, however you want. We drew the half circles on x and y. So when we draw the other meridians, these have to be on, these are going to change on the y and z. Just like you did sine and cosine of x and y so you can get that circular fashion, well, you're going to do the x and y, you're going to do the y and z cosine and sine, so that way you can get a circular fashion in the y and the z axis, because it is a three-dimensional object and a circle's two-dimensional. So we're going to do that. That'll be all of that. Now on the next line, it'll be almost the same. We're going to do float z is set to spheres j dot transform dot position dot z times, now we got to multiply the z by cosine, and we're going to add it to the spheres j dot transform dot position dot y times the sine math f dot sine of phi. What did I do? Math f of phi. See, cannot convert double to float. It's because of this. I see you trying to get me. Alright, so it's basically the same, but just a little, they're just inverted. So on the y-axis, you do the cosine of y minus the sine of z, and then on z, you do the cosine of z added to the sine of y. And you want these two to be opposite. You don't want them to be both plus and both negative. They need to be opposite, because you want them to go in both of the directions of y and z. So now we got all of that set up. What we need to do now is we're going to come into here and we'll do instance dot transform dot position is set to a new vector 3, and we, yep, you guessed it, x, y, z. This, drop it, and then we'll come into here and do instance dot transform dot set parent. This isn't, and this is not very so we'll fix that real quick. Let's do, we'll just do it for now. So set game object dot find sphere. You know what? I don't like that. We're gonna do that. We're gonna take care of it now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this at the very beginning of this function. We know it's already been created, so we're gonna do game object sphere container set to this. Okay, we're gonna do game object dot find, and we're gonna find the one that has the name sphere container, and that's what we're gonna do. So it's gonna find it. We know you can do error checking if you want, but we know it's created because inside of the half circle we did create it right here. So we know it's gonna exist, because you can't have a full sphere without having a half circle first. So it's gonna cache it. It's only gonna find it once and cache it, because if I'd have did it in here, it would have been every iteration of this loop. That's just expensive. So right here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna set the parent as the sphere container dot transform, like this. And if everything is done correctly, yes, no, maybe, too many? Too many. Alright, so if that's done correctly, we should be able to come into the start function, do this dot sphere formation, and we want to put 5 points with a radius of 2, and we want 2 meridians. Like that. Come back into Unity. Let it compile. Do this. Okay, so object got set to reference. Right here. Let's see. Number of points. Set parent. Sphere dot container dot transform. Ah, you see, I didn't spell it right. Okay, so we'll come back into here. Pause it. Undo it. There we go. But that's why. So it stopped when it started getting to the sphere. But you see, it created the half circle. But when it got to here, it broke. It couldn't find it because that's not the name. It wasn't spelt right. So good call. Debug. Alright, there we go. Well, you're only drawing a half circle. That's interesting. Spheres, J, transform. Oh, you know what would be fun? And I mean, this is just... Let's see, instantiate. Let me try something here. Okay, so we instantiated the game object. We got it instantiated. We set the transform position to the vector. We set the parent. That is so weird. Spheres J. Number of meridians. Number of points. Let's switch this. Let's try a little bit of math here first. Let's not get it rounded. We gotta make sure. I don't think that'll make a difference, but it's worth trying. Well, I did something. Let me see here. Okay. Go into here. Half circle, number of points. Number of points. 5. Radius is 2. Number of meridians is 2. Okay, let's try number of meridians 5. Which makes sense because it's just going to make a circle. 2 meridians will just make a circle. So what we'll do is if we do it to 5, it's going to be 5 of them. There we go. Okay, so this is what it was. So when you do 2 meridians, it's only 2 loops. That's 2 half circles. That's a full circle. So all it did was make 2 half circles. It made a full circle. That's all it did. So it was working. The issue here is it was setting them as integers, and we actually need to like cast them as floats. Because once we noticed, because you notice once we did that, everything kind of sorted out. It says cast is redundant, but no, that's the way to get it to work. So with that being said, you're probably like, oh, well, how do you know it's a sphere? I'm like, it is kind of hard to see, but it is. And I'm going to show you exactly how we can get that taken care of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and show you a cool little thing. So we will go into the sphere formation. Okay, let's go to half circle first. Okay, so here we are on half circle. What we're going to do is we're going to go in here and say, you know what? Right before we set the parent, I want to go into the instance. I want to get the component of mesh renderer, and I want to set its color. Oh, excuse me, material. Dot color. And I want to set it to color green. What this is going to do is the first half circle that's drawn is going to be green. So we can see where it starts. So we can go into here, it's saved. Go up here, hit play. You should see one of them that's green and the rest shouldn't. See? Okay, so this was one. We rotate, right click with the mouse and hold it. You can do this. Like that. Middle click with the mouse and hold. You can drag around the screen. So we can see it did one revolution of green, then another one, another one, another one, and another one. So there's your 5. Well, the cool thing is, that's a little too dull. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into here, down with the half circle. Let's go down here into sphere formation. And we're going to set it up to where we're going to do that for each meridian. Because I think it would look pretty cool. So what we're going to do is right under where we did this at, we'll do the same thing. Instance dot transform. Oh, instance dot get component. And then we'll do the mesh renderer component. Whoa. And material and color. And we're going to leave that blank for a moment because what we're going to do is I would like it to alternate between colors. So what I'm going to do is we'll go under here and we'll make a list of colors. You can make this list of whatever you want. I'm going to make it a list of color and I'm going to go ahead and access it. I want the first color to be color black. I want the color blue. I want the color red. And the color yellow. Okay, so here we are with a list of colors, right? Instantiated. What I need to do is I want it to go through each one of those lists in this list and say every new meridian, give me the next color in the list. Whenever you get to the end, go back to the beginning and start over. So right here, we need to do a loop. So all we got to do is up here, right here, we'll make an int color index. Let's set it to 0. This is just going to hold the value for us. Then we'll come on in here and we're going to set this to color index. The color is set to colors. Color index. I'll be like, oh man, what's happening? Well, right now they'll all be set to black. So if we leave it like this, what's going to happen is when we come into here, the first meridian will be green and then the other 4 are going to be black. Alright, so that's a little bit easier to see, you know. It kind of looks like a star, but you got to understand that this is supposed to rotate. You're going to see it from a different angle in a moment. So let's go ahead and make it a little more cooler. So after we break out of this for loop and we get ready to go to the next meridian, what we're going to do is we're going to check to see if the color index is greater than or equal to colors dot count minus 1. If it is, we're going to set the color index back to 0. Now, what is this doing and why? The reason we're checking for this is because we have to increase the color index for us to be able to go and get the next index inside the color list to use a different color. Well, it's going to get to the point to where what if you have more meridians than you do colors? So you don't want it to give you an array out of an exception error that it's out of the array size. So what you got to do is you're saying, hey, if the color index has gotten all the way to the count minus 1, so like for instance, the list that I created is going to be a list of 4. So you know the indexes are 0 to 3 in a list. So when it gets to count 4, minus 1, 3, if the color index is greater than or equal to 3, reset the color index to 0. Else, just set the color index, just take the color index and add 1. Just increment it. So it's going to increment through it and say, oh man, I'm at 3. What am I going to do? I'm going to reset to 0. Okay, then the next meridian will be it. So the way it should be is your first meridian is green because that's what I set in half circle. And then the next meridian should be black, and then blue, and then red, and then yellow. That's what I should have here. So when we do that, we should have one of every color. From green to yellow. And that's what we have. Green, black, blue, red, yellow. And that's what we have. Okay? And to see it in effect, you can come over here. We'll rotate this 90 degrees. And put the container component on it. And it'll move. Let's take this off for a moment. X. And what we'll do is we'll take the rotation of this sphere container. Now rotate it. Come into here. And if you hold Alt, I believe. Yes. Nope. That's Alt. There's one of them that rotates it. Hold Alt. Yeah, it'll rotate it like a... Okay, there we go. So yeah. So that'll do that. And to make it a better point, because you're like, oh, well, there's enough in there. We'll come back up into here. I want the number of points. I want the number of meridians to be 7. And I want 10. And by the way, everything looks close together because of that number 2, which is the radius. If you increase this radius size, I'll show you something really quick. So we increase it to where there's not just going to be 5 anymore, it's going to be 10. So as you can see from in here, let me get this camera all fixed, jacked up and whatnot. There we go. How you doing? So you can see the way this looks. It's a legit just sphere. You can rotate it 90 degrees, make it look a little prettier. Over here, rotate it by 90 degrees, and it looks like that. That's a sphere. Notice how we increased the number to 10. So now we have 10 half circle points on each half circle. And if you look at the colors, we started out with green, and then we went black, blue, red, yellow, and then it started over again and went to black, blue, and it stopped because it was black and blue. So it reiterates through the list. You put the container component on there just to see it move around a bit. It'll do some funkiness, but I mean, it rotates. You know? But I mean, that's essentially how you would draw a sphere. And if you take this number and change the radius by like 2, let's say we double the size and radius, it's going to open up the inside wider. So you'll see whenever I hit play here, it's just going to be wider. So it looks like they're not as close together, see? And that's all that does. And then you can come into here, and then you can pop the container on it, and there you go. You got the sphere, you can rotate it by 90 degrees, you can do all kinds of cool stuff with it. So essentially, if you want this to be able to be more kind of tight-knit, you want to lower the radius on it. So if you want something that's going to look completely solid, as if like you can't, you know, fly through it, or there's no holes in the sphere, you're just better off dragging just putting a 3D game object in here that's a sphere, and then you can just scale up the x-axis and the y-axis and the z-axis, and there you go. Now you got a sphere that, you know, well, you can see it on here. So now you have a sphere that's actually solid. You can do that if you wanted to, and then just give it a color. So if you want that, but this is a way you can do it like this. Now, it can be resource extensive the way I did it, but this is strategically, this is supposed to just help you understand how to generate it. Now you can take this and you can go and you can make object pools. You can go and create these ahead of time and then just say how many you want to turn on and how many you want to turn off. You can make this completely optimized. This tutorial is strictly just to show you the math and the formula of actually how to get it going. So that's what it is with that. And then in the container component, one thing that you can do is we can come into here. This is just if you want to. I'm going to put it in here because it's nifty. So you can private float, and we'll do an X, we'll do a Y, and we'll do a Z. And we'll set it all to 0. Alright, we're going to serialize this field. Okay, and we'll come into here, and then we'll set this to X, Y, and Z. And then we'll go back into here. Draw our sphere again. Okay. And then you can come into the container. I want to rotate it 90 degrees in the Z axis because I want it to be straight up. Like this, you know. I know it's kind of close to the camera, but let's see if I can move it from the camera. View of the view. We'll just do this so you can see it a little better. And then inside of here, you can put the container component on there. It's not moving or anything, but you can change. I want it to move in the x-axis. I'm gonna stop it. I want it to move in the y-axis. I want it to move in the z-axis. Yeah. And then you can just come into here and just reset the values. And then that's all you gotta do. And you can increase the speed, so like you can just do this and this and this. So like let's say you want all of them to move 5. There you go. Moving all over the place. And then you can speed it up. Now I know you might be thinking this thing right here looks a little weird. Let's see, where can I find the one that looks all, oh yeah, you can't see it in here. So it's the way it's rendered in here. I think it looks pretty cool. Basically, whenever you go and start a new meridian, it put another sphere here, and you just have different colors on top of one another. And so it gives you that really cool effect. But other than that though, this is the tutorial in conclusion. I just wanted to make this tutorial. It's been on my heart for a while to figure out what kind of next tutorial I could go and put on the channel for you guys. And I figured, why not a sphere? We had a circle, so why not do some three-dimensional shapes, you know? So I think a sphere would be really cool. A lot of games, they have a lot of stuff like that you can fly through, and I just figured it'd be really something to show you guys that you enjoy or appreciate to some degree. So, but I appreciate y'all taking the time to listen. Pray y'all are being safe out there. I'll chat with y'all later. Y'all need anything, drop them in the comment section. Let me know. I'll talk to y'all later. Have a blessing.